Hi everyone tuning in and watching Nercomp from a distance. I wish that we could have had the conference together earlier this spring, but it's great that a virtual conference was formed and that I get to still talk to you a little bit about information literacy with microcredentials. So the overview for today, for the presentation, is that we're going to explore the current context for digital badges, review potential for machine learning in digital badges and other applications, and identify the factors that make a digital badging implementation more likely to succeed. So I do just want to let you know that I am using a free video recording tool just because the picture quality is really great with Screencast-O-Matic, and so I have a 15-minute limit, and so if I need a little bit more time to explain my presentation, I will add on a 5-minute video at the end. A little bit about me. My name is Victoria Raish, and I am the online learning librarian for Penn State. I've been involved with digital badges since 2013 when it really started with Mozilla and the MacArthur Foundation. So a little bit about the current context for badges. I think we're in a pretty interesting time for digital badges, similar to other educational technologies. There's a lot of hype. Everyone's seen the hype graph, and then there's the trial of disillusionment, and then it kind of stabilizes. So I think we're in a pretty interesting time because a lot of people have worked with digital badges or been involved with microcredentials for a relatively long period of time now, and there are still other people that are just getting interested or getting more involved with microcredentials, digital badges at their institutions, or K-12 or workforce, wherever they might be. And so we have people, still trying to work from the beginning and solve issues and challenges that come up for a successful integration. And then there are people who are dealing with questions that you don't encounter until you're down the road a little bit. And so at Penn State, which is where I work, we are in the case of being down the road a little bit. So this presentation, while I will, cover a little bit about the basics just as a reference point, really is focused on people with a moderate awareness of digital badges and microcredentials and applications in them. So where are digital badges at today? I think is a interesting question to think about. We've had more adoption than before, I would say, and a lot of the research shows that, publications coming out, scholarly and popular, as well as the financial scopes and pictures of these companies that are issuing microcredentials and the number of colleges that have issued them and the awareness of employers who accept them. So all around, I think awareness of the ecosystem and what these digital badges, open badges really are, is increasing. So we've come a long way, but we still have these challenges. And this presentation is going to talk about some of these challenges and potential ways that we've moved to solve them. I would argue that some of these challenges, fall into like the wicked or like not easily solvable. So at the end of this presentation, you're not going to have, all the answers to potential challenges, but definitely talk through and think about how we are grappling with them at Penn State. So in addition, I think digital badges today has this really large supporting ecosystem, right? So when I first got into badges, we used badge.us, right? And it was like one person in their room and the server would go down, and it was great work, and early adopter innovators working all at the same time. The first system we used at Penn State was so clunky and not at all like it is today. So there's been a ton of progress made in ownership transfer and stability, and governments getting involved, and private industry getting involved, and IMS Global being involved. So it's really just growing a lot in terms of support and awareness, right? So like MIT is leading institutions looking at kind of the envelope that's carrying the content of the badge and how that lives. We have IMS Global, and then there's all these multiple vendors that are issuing microcredentials. But I think we still have really important questions to talk about. Some of these have been questions from the very beginning that people still need to think about and talk about, and other ones are ones that are popping up as people think more about these ideas, right? So like we always still have the questions about like data portability and storage and how long things are stored for and who stores it, right? So that's a whole other conversation in this presentation, we're not going to focus as much on that as we are about our learners at Penn State and the kind of models and approaches that we've taken in our work with microcredentials. So this is, I think, a great quote from Kathleen Delaski. It's in an article on EdSurge. She's the founder of the Education Design Lab. It says, while the system of microcredentials theoretically will make learning more affordable, portable, and relevant, will a diverse range of learners know how and why to take advantage of it, and perhaps more importantly, will they trust it? So I thought this was a great quote because we figured out a lot of the technical things related to standards, and we've definitely served some populations well, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure that students are being served by the learning experiences that they're getting offered through microcredentials, and that they know how and why those learning experiences are valid and worthwhile for them to engage in. So a little bit about our context at Penn State. I work in the library. In 2013, I was getting my PhD from Penn State, and so I got a graduate assistantship in the library under Emily Rimland, who's an information literacy librarian, and she was really, ahead of the game when it came to digital badges and their adoption. So she hired a GA to help her design some information literacy digital badges, and that's what I worked on for about 2 years of getting my PhD, and now Emily is my colleague, and we work on microcredentials and badges a lot at Penn State together. So in our context, we've created these information literacy digital badges within the library. So this is just an overall hierarchy of our badges to give you a sense of kind of the scope and quantity. We do have a few badges that are not on this particular hierarchy, but it gives you a good sense of what we do. So those bottom badges there that are floating on the rocks are more at the orientation level, and so in some situations these might be called stamps instead of badges, depends on people's terminology, but these are typically faster to earn than some of the other badges, and they serve as an active orientation. So for rural campus students who are learning at a distance online all the time, they did not have a really robust interactive experience with the library in the context of a research assignment that a lot of them will have. So we use these badges as a highly recommended activity in Rural Campus English 15. And then the other badges are what we consider our information literacy set of badges. Those bottom ones, as you can see, are the library connection. So the information literacy set of badges are based on a few different things. We did nationwide research with human resource managers and surveys to see what skills people, recent college graduates, were lacking when they came into the workplace, and then of those skills, what are the underlying concepts of information literacy that help reach some of those skills. So we did that, used that to influence our design, and we also used the ACRL standards for information literacy, which now have turned into the ACRL framework. ACRL is the Association for College and Research Libraries, and that has influenced, kind of the standard frames that we're teaching to, but more importantly, we considered the local needs and learners that we have at Penn State when it comes to information literacy instruction and students that we typically see, which are foundational level learners for the most part. So this is how we have our badges grouped. Ideally, what we would see would be a program adopt these from start to finish. And so by the time a student graduated, they would have earned the UBA badge. In actual implementation, it hasn't exactly worked out like that. And we'll talk a little bit about factors for successful implementations later on in the presentation. So I'm not going to read this to you. Many of you are familiar with information literacy, but I wanted to give you a sense of how the Association for College and Research Libraries defines information literacy. So within Penn State's library, we teach information literacy instruction to students from, freshmen, even high schools that come in as a land-grant institution, all the way up to graduates and postdocs. And if faculty need help, we're happy to make research appointments with them as well. So a little bit about our design philosophy for our badges. We definitely wanted them to be constructivist based. We really valued students making meaning, using their own experiences to kind of make sense, do some sense making. We also believe in asset-based instruction, so valuing what these learners are coming in with, the knowledge that they have, and really trying to activate it, right? So we have this asset-based instruction model, which borrows heavily from funds of knowledge, Samuel Amati and Gonzalez research. And then we definitely want to focus on articulating prior knowledge. The reason for this is to try to activate cognitive structures that the learner would have as they're coming into the learning environment, so that we're hopefully saying, like, here, let's think about what you already know about this and try to both accommodate and assimilate this new knowledge into your existing knowledge structures. And then we also focused on reflection and application within each step, because we're focused on hopefully promoting transfer. Transfer is complicated, right? The phenomenon of transfer is complicated with learning, but hopefully getting students to think about other situations where they might use the skills they're learning in the badges. And then finally, we try to be really clear about our steps, what the steps are, and the time expectations to try to just take away some of that cognitive load that might be on somebody worrying about how long this is going to take, if it's difficult to learn, the system's clunky, all of those kinds of things. So how are we using badges? I touched on this a little bit with the orientation, but we definitely have this like unbalanced reach of information literacy instruction. So some students receive the same in-person session, 4 or 5 times. Other students don't get that information session at all, or they might graduate without ever having a session in the library instruction. And so we wanted to be able to expand our scope and our reach of library instruction. So our goal with using badges was to try to, expand our reach and try to reach more students and teach potentially different skills than they would typically get in an information literacy session in the library. So adoption of our information literacy badges, we definitely encountered this case of like unexpected success. So since the launch of the badges, which we launched in 2014, but we didn't see any adoption really. We piloted it a few times, but not big adoption until 2016. So we were, just building awareness and trying to show use cases, and then eventually found an early adopter, picked up, and it's just really taken off since then. So we've had over 10,000 badges earned by students, and we've had 130 course sections over that now based on the summer. And we have 16 evaluators doing the evaluation. So that talks a little bit about some of the problems and challenges we had with digital badges and the solutions that we came up with. So one of the solutions was definitely crowdsourcing and training other people to be able to evaluate the student work. At the beginning, it was just my colleague Emily and myself who were doing all of the badge evaluations, and it got to be a lot of time that we had to put into that just based on this rapid adoption that we had of the badges, right? So it's a great problem to have, but definitely something that we need to find a solution for. So one part of the solution was expanding the pool of evaluators and making sure we're doing training and norming sessions so that students are getting consistent evaluations and consistent feedback. The other thing that we focused on was building in some machine learning and artificial intelligence into the system. So this was really just great timing, but we were able to participate in a NITNI artificial intelligence challenge in which Penn State partnered with, different players in the game, including Amazon, Microsoft, and Azure, and Oracle, and all these people. And so all these industries, and we were able to proceed in this competition that was put together, and we received money through each stage, and we eventually were able to put together MVP, a minimum viable prototype. So in this section, I'm going to talk a little bit about that and where we've gone since then and how this is helping to solve some of the challenges that we have. So we really had 2 issues to solve with this, right? First, we wanted to have some assistance with evaluation of student work. We needed some way to augment the evaluations we were doing. We believed pretty strongly in the personalized feedback we were giving to students, but at the same time, we needed to find a way to scale that and make it happen faster. And then the second thing is that we really just wanted to provide students with some immediate feedback. So students feedback is extremely important in the learning process, but is delayed feedback super helpful that happens 2